Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel. Ripple CTO David Schwartz says that there is evidence that might point to somebody attempting to spam the XRP ledger right now. So I'm going to cover that. Before I get into that, though, of course, this is a very XRP-centric channel. There's big news today on Libra. I want to talk about that first. I will get to the XRP topic, which I find genuinely fascinating. Because what does it look like when somebody's attempting to spam the XRP ledger? What are the potential negative ramifications? And I'm going to run through all of that with you. But got to get to the hot news first here. Facebook's David Marcus, creator of Libra, he says that he'd be willing to take all of his compensation, all of his pay, in the form of Libra, which I found fascinating. Going to talk about that. Also, there's a gentleman that was with the CFTC for 5 years. He says that Libra is a security, which I found genuinely fascinating because it's supposed to just be currency, and a currency can't be security, right? And if it's money and it's backed by fiat currencies, how can it be a security? So we'll delve into that too. There's also a report, there's concern out there that stablecoins may replace traditional money. And also in non-XRP news, this is just fascinating. I'm going to talk on this briefly. You guys are aware that Binance was hacked, correct? Just off the top of my head, I think it was something like $40 million worth of Bitcoin was stolen. It was like 7,000 Bitcoins, I think, were stolen. And that's now being converted and sold on exchanges. So hackers got that Bitcoin on the move. So I'm just going to share that with you because it's an interesting thing in the realm of cryptocurrency. Now, before we get going here, though, if you would please delicately tap that like button, but don't smash it, because if you break it, you are liable for the repairs. And also go ahead and subscribe if you are a fan of Ripple and XRP. Now, here's a piece from CoinDesk. This is what I want to start with here for this particular video. This is titled, Facebook's Marcus says he'd accept 100% of his pay in Libra. Facebook's blockchain lead David Marcus told lawmakers he would be willing to accept 100% of his salary in the social media giant's proposed Libra cryptocurrency. During a Senate Banking Committee hearing on the controversial project Tuesday, the ranking member of the panel, Senator Sherrod Brown, Democrat, Ohio, repeatedly asked Marcus if he trusted Libra enough to put skin in the game this way. And here's the quote from Brown. "You really think people should trust you with their hard-earned money? I think it's delusional," Brown said, after enumerating Facebook's history of privacy abuses. He then posed the question, will you accept all of your compensation in that new currency? Marcus initially sidestepped the question, saying that Libra is not designed as a substitute for bank accounts. After Brown pressed him, the Facebook executive said he would trust all of my assets in Libra. Yes, I would. That's a quote from him there. Now, I found that fascinating. If you think about it in terms of Libra, trusting in it, it's more risky than trusting in fiat currency, but only to a certain degree, because understand that Libra itself is to be backed by a basket of fiat currency. So as long as the money that's backing it remains sound, Libra itself should remain sound. There are other concerns, though, because you've got a blend of genuine fiats actually backing it, which could result in more volatility. I think that's a fair point to make. Also, regarding the coin itself, it's cryptographically secure. If there's a bug in that, you could have a serious problem as well. So there are a couple additional concerns, but outside of that, conceptually, just holding on to Libra, being paid in Libra, given that it is stable, there is, in theory, no volatility other than what the fiat moves, which, again, fiats typically are stable. Other than that, it would be no different than holding money in terms of being compensated. Now, of course, you do run into the issues if you're actually accepting all of your compensation in Libra. Where can you actually use it to pay for stuff? So there is that, too. So it is different to a certain degree. How risky is it? It's riskier than accept getting paid in fiat currency, especially if it's something stable like the US dollar. But may not be that much worse. Could be. I wouldn't want to do it. I don't see an incentive. I'm happy with how my United States dollars are paying for everything that I need to pay for and consume in my daily life anyway. Anyway, the piece continues, though. Marcus initially sidestepped the question, saying that Libra is not designed as a substitute for bank accounts. Oh, I'm sorry, I just read that part. Moving on, next part. Only after the lawmaker pressed him again on the specific question about salary did Marcus answer the affirmative. The hearing, which is expected to run into the early afternoon, was full of such exchanges in the first hour. For example, when Marcus reiterated his talking point that Facebook would be only one of many companies involved in the Libra project, Brown shot back, and here's the quote, You know better than that. Only Facebook, as a social media company, has access to 2 billion people, which is a fair point. Still, conceptually, if all the entities involved wanted to go ahead with Libra without Facebook, they can. Yes, it's true, though. Access to 2 billion people, that is something. Okay, that's not nothing, right? And then the piece concludes, several times during the hearing, Marcus said trust is primordial. At one point, Brown asked him, what the hell does that mean, that trust is primordial? It means we need to do better, Marcus answered. And you notice that stuff when they throw around words like hell in these hearings, typically politicians, this is pretty commonplace, no matter what the topic, they want to display emotions so that when they get that soundbite on the news, the people feel like, oh, that's a passionate person, they must be correct, this or that. You see that all over the place, though, so I just thought I'd point that out. It seems to me that's what they're doing. This is not, things like this are not always calm, rational adult discussions as I would prefer to see, but that's that, man. That's life, that's humans. Next piece here, same topic, basically. This is another one from CoinDesk titled, Facebook's Libra should be regulated like a security, says former CFTC chair. And the piece begins, Libra is a security, says a former Commodity Futures Trading Commission CFTC chairman, is prepared in prepared remarks to the U.S. House of Representatives. Gary Gensler, who chaired the CFTC from 2009 to 2014 and previously held leadership roles at the U.S. Treasury Department, says in written testimony that Facebook's new cryptocurrency project looks like an investment vehicle and that Libra may even resemble some banking structures. Now, that's the part that I found genuinely fascinating, and I'm going to get to flesh this out a little bit via his comments here, but just the concept of a cryptocurrency that, as Facebook states, is supposed to be used as money, just the fact that that could be perceived as something that could be utilized as an investment vehicle, which is different. If it's an investment vehicle from a company, of course, that makes sense that would be a security. So is it one, is it the other, is it a blend of the two? So the piece continues here. Gensler will testify before the House Financial Services Committee on Wednesday as part of a panel of expert witnesses on the potential implications of Libra. He will join Public Citizen President Robert Weissman, Columbia University law professor Katharina Pistor, and Georgetown University law professor Chris Brummer. Okay, now let's get down here to the quotes here, because I don't read this whole thing here. At the heart of his argument, that's Gary's argument, is Libra's structure. Libra itself is intended to act as a kind of stablecoin with its value pegged to a basket of sovereign currencies and government bonds. Members of the Libra Association, the governing council charged with overseeing the cryptocurrency's ongoing development after it launches, will receive a Libra investment token, a security token, as Facebook has acknowledged. Now, that's the piece that I didn't know prior to today. That's genuinely fascinating, and that's where things start to get muddy. And so the piece continues. Collateral earned on the basket of currencies backing Libra, referred to as the Libra Reserve, will go to holders of the investment token, according to documentation Facebook published about the project last month. And so here's a quote from Gensler coming up. He argues that it means Libra itself looks like a security, saying, here's the quote, as currently proposed, the Libra Reserve, in essence, is a pooled investment vehicle that should at a minimum be regulated by the Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, with the Libra Association registering as an investment advisor. So to be perfectly honest, before I can form a firm opinion on this, more information on this is going to need to be divulged. Is there somewhat of a muddying of the waters just by the nature of this new type of technology, and maybe you need new legislation to sidestep this type of classification, because something can't be both a currency and a security here. And so I understand they're talking about a Libra investment token, but they're still intertwined. And so legislatively, what does that mean? That's something that is still unclear. So I wish I could give you guys a firm answer right now, but I don't know that anyone that's not inside of Facebook or the companies working together to make this thing happen, I don't know that anyone else could reasonably know what that looks like. So as I learn more, I'll be happy to report on that in the future, but I don't know, again, based on what I'm reading here, I don't know that there is existing legislation that's going to properly cover this, because it seems like every governing body, especially within the United States, wants their hand at it. And that really muddies water. Like, what entity should actually get to classify what it is? And that's part of the problem that we've seen in classifying what cryptocurrencies are at large when it comes to Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, all of them. Everybody wants their hand on this stuff here. So we'll just see. That's all I got on that topic for now. But it's got to be one or the other unless new legislation is created. That's where I stand right now on it. So it's just not clear. And here's another piece from CoinDesk. traditional money could be surpassed by e-money and stablecoins IMF paper. So it's the IMF claiming this. A new paper from the International Monetary Fund, IMF, suggests that cash and bank deposits could be left behind as digital money and fiat-pegged cryptocurrency see greater adoption. The fintech note titled The Rise of Digital Money and published Monday looks at how tech firms are increasingly competing with major banks and credit card companies. The authors write in the introduction, so here's a quote from it. Digital forms of money are increasingly in the wallets of consumers as well as in the minds of policymakers. Cash and bank deposits are battling with so-called e-money, electronically stored monetary value denominated in and pegged to a currency like the euro or the dollar. Ultimately, cash and bank deposits will face tough competition and could even be surpassed by these new forms of value transfer, the paper warns. Yeah, you think? I certainly think that's the path that we are on. And as more stable coins are created, of course, understand these are simply walled gardens. So as it pertains to XRP, this these walled gardens do not increase the level of interoperability. It just silos off more different types of money. And so if there are individual entities that want to create their own little networks, I don't have a problem with that if they can get traction for their own use cases to whatever degree that's possible to even pull off. That's fine. But that bodes well for XRP. Because XRP is excellent at moving money. It's great as a bridge currency, whether you're talking about fiat to fiat or stablecoin to stablecoin. These things need to be converted. And that's why XRP, as it is designed from a technological perspective, is superior in that capacity, great at moving money, and that's where a lot of its utility comes in. That's where a lot of the underlying value can actually be seen. All right, next piece. This is also from CoinDesk. Got a lot from CoinDesk today here, and I'm going to be real brief on this, and then we'll get into the XRP piece, which I'm excited to share with you. I found it really fascinating, especially since David Schwartz actually chimed in on what's going on here. So this piece, though, hackers are turning Binance's stolen Bitcoin into other cryptocurrencies. Yeah. Okay, so this thing's so super short that I'm going to read the whole thing. I don't like to read whole pieces, but if it's this short, I think it's okay. Hopefully it won't seem like I'm journeying on when it's this short. All right, a new analysis by CoinFirm shows the movement of the Bitcoin stolen from Binance into various wallets. The hack, which netted 7,000 Bitcoin, happened on May 7th, 2019, and the hackers have been moving stolen Bitcoin from wallet to wallet. Now, however, CoinFirm has spotted some activity that suggests the hackers are moving their gains off of exchanges, potentially into other cryptocurrencies. The first transaction happened here, and there's a link to it, so you can click on it if you want. I'll share this link below, while other transactions followed. Most recently, however, it's become clear that the hacker has begun liquidating the Bitcoin on various exchanges. And here we go. Yeah, here's a quote now. Analysis of one of the main chains used by the hacker in layering stolen funds shows that they were able to liquidate at least 1.8087 Bitcoin, that's 21,000 United States dollars, on the following exchanges, said CoinFirm's Grant Blaisdell. The transfers happened as follows, and you can pause if you want to look at the screen, or feel free to click on the link below if you'd like, and then there's the list of the exchanges. And the piece ends stating this. Well, caveats apply. It's clear that the hacker moved an amount of Bitcoin to each of these exchanges, and there they either left the chain or remained dormant. This is obviously cold comfort to those who are watching their stolen crypto hop from exchange to exchange. And as I understand it, though, Binance, they actually did cover the loss, so the customers didn't take it. You can imagine what that would do to consumer confidence, customer confidence, if it was actually the retail speculators that were taking a hit on this. That would be bad for business. That would be very bad for Binance. Would not bode well. So I don't. It was my understanding that is not the case here. But it's fascinating to me in terms of how you're going to unload this stuff, given that everything is tracked. I think you're going to have to use privacy coins, and they didn't go into that level of detail here. But Bitcoin is not anonymous. You can track. There's just this trail of transactions when you're using Bitcoin. So I think you'd have to turn it into a privacy coin. You could do multiple transactions there and spit it out the other end. And in theory, that should completely mask what you're actually doing. So the fact that any of this was able to be tracked is fascinating to me. how was this tracked? And that level of detail, just don't go into it in this piece. If I learn anything, I'd love to share it with you because I'm quite genuinely fascinated about that. But once this stuff like this happens, I just assume it's gone thanks to privacy coins. And I spoke a little bit about that yesterday, I think for the first time ever on my channel. And as it pertains to privacy coins, this is a reason that I'm concerned about them either potentially being legislated out of existence, which I don't want to happen because, again, to just sum up my position on this real briefly, to the extent that it's easy for people to utilize them for nefarious activities, there could be reasonable legislation perhaps enacted. That sounds fair to have a discussion on that at a minimum. But there are also instances where it is reasonable to have transactions conducted. There could be business transactions that are very private between private entities, and you don't want anybody to be able to track it because who knows? I mean, that could affect all sorts of, if you see something like that, it can affect stocks, this or that, price of this. It just depends on what the situation is. And so there could be reasonable situations, or even on an individual level, where you want to conduct perfectly legal transactions, but you do want that extra layer of privacy. And I don't think that we should throw the baby out with the bathwater. That needs to be allowed. And so I want there to be thoughtful legislation. I don't know exactly what that will look like. I just don't want privacy coins to completely go away, but it's possible they could. I just hope that doesn't happen. So we'll see how thoughtful legislators are on that topic. Now, here's the part about XRP that I found really fascinating. I hadn't heard some of this before, ever. So, I think it's stuff that's so into the weeds that you guys probably haven't heard some of this either, or maybe have, though. I don't know everything. I'm sure I'll let you guys out things about XRP that I do not know. But anyway, Brumdog Millionaire, he tweeted this out. Can anyone explain why there are so many failed payments going through the ledger? He's talking about XRP ledger here, of course. This is Ripple China, but it's the same on Ripple, Fox, and GateHub, and others. Most of the payments are 6,440 XRP. Does this keep the price suppressed? Can you shed any light at Joel Katz? And, of course, Joel Katz, that's his Twitter handle. That's David Schwartz's Twitter handle. And then he writes TechPath_dry, which I had never heard of, and I read that, and I was like, what is TechPath dry? No idea. So let's go down here, and I'm going to tell you what I learned about it. And there's a tweet from a different person, XRP Shine. He wrote, also these dodgy offers increased 250% since May 8th. The start of the bull run, exclamation point. And so David Schwartz, Ripple CTO, responded with this. TechPath dry just means someone tried to make a payment and there wasn't enough liquidity on the ledger to make that payment at that price. And I hadn't heard of TechPath dry, so that's fascinating. I like to learn all these little tidbits because I'm an XRP dork, so to me it's cool stuff anyway. Anyway, here's the part that I found perhaps even more fascinating, as somebody could be attacking the ledger via, in the format of spam. That is basically an attack on the ledger. He writes, it might be part of an attempt to spam the ledger or make full nodes do more work. And so that sounds like a nefarious type of activity. Not that it's having some huge negative impact, but people can try all they want here. So let me go down further. And Galvatron chimed in with something that I want to share with you exactly on this topic. So I'm going to read just a little bit more of this for you, so we can hopefully get a little bit more insight into what's going on. Because Galvatron, he's absolutely a wealth of knowledge. He definitely knows more about how the ledger itself operates than me from a technical perspective. He's just an absolute wealth of knowledge, and I'm still learning from the guy, which I value anyway. Anyway, Brumdog Millionaire responded to David Schwartz and he wrote, thank you for your reply at Joel Katz. Appreciate that you always take the time to respond to the XRP community. We are very lucky to have you, which is a very nice thing of him to say. And then somebody named Just a Guy responded, how could or would the network respond to somebody spamming transactions? Is there a mechanism that would allow nodes on the network to ignore the bad actor with or without operator intervention? And somebody responded, he wrote, fees are negligible, minimum fee is 10 drops, which is currently worth 0.00000, is that the right number, 0.38? Yeah, so nothing. It's nothing. Anyway, and then Galgatron responded, and this is something insightful I wanted to share with you. Cheap spam doesn't slow or harm the XRP ledger because there's still lots of room for other transactions. As the ledger saturates, fees go up rapidly, quickly consuming the spammer's resources with nothing gained. And that's why this type of attack doesn't really work on the XRP ledger. It's costly, and the end result is that you've achieved nothing, which I think is absolutely fantastic. So if you guys have any additional thoughts on this or what's going on, I'm happy to hear it. If there are any news entities that have covered this, I haven't seen it yet, but I would be curious. A lot of times when David Schwartz tweets stuff out, it does get picked up by crypto media afterwards. So if that happens and there's any additional insight into this, I will be happy to share it with you. All right, next thing I wanted to share with you here, and this is from Peter McCormick. It would be great for an altcoin/token leader to come out and admit they were wrong. And then he's got three little bullet points here. When they can't build what they promised, the tech doesn't work, or the project was a mistake. And then he ends by stating, every project with adoption/scaling issues just appears to kick the can down the road. Thank you very much. That is absolutely correct. I'm going to follow him. What's really cool about this? This cannot be said about XRP. They're in the process of building what was promised. I'm talking about Ripple. Obviously, there are other developers. I understand it's decentralized. There's all sorts of developers out there. But Ripple, that's what we're always thinking about. They're in the limelight, right? They're the ones that are always at the forefront of our minds when we're talking about development on the ledger. So anyway, they are building what they promised, and we'll see if they achieve the level of success they're looking for. I'm optimistic. The tech does work, the project was not a mistake, and there are not scaling issues. In fact, they thought long and hard about scaling before going down the path that they're going, and even though we're nowhere near topping out 1,500 transactions per second, which is the maximum on-chain number of transactions that XRP Ledger can facilitate, there are scaling solutions. They haven't finished them technically, but they do know that they will work. That's not a question. There are off-chain solutions that will work. From what I've read from Ripple employees, basically, I can't remember who said this. There's one person in particular that was speaking along these lines, but said basically, essentially, given that we're nowhere near topping off at 1,500 transactions per second, it's just not a priority. But Ripple employees themselves, even though they don't control the decentralized ledger, there are people on the team that are happy to work on the technology to make it scaling. It's just not a priority right now. There's all sorts of other stuff to do, but scaling will not be an issue with XRP. So I found that fascinating. And I'm going to end with this. This is just a fun little description of the gyrations within the crypto market. Thomas Lee of Fundstrat stated via tweet, crypto had a healthy pullback in the last week. Bull markets are escalator rides with an occasional terrifying elevator ride down. That's a fun way to word that, is it not? And he's got this funny little gif of these people, they're falling down a hill. It looks like there's spectators back there. I don't know what this is, but I think I actually saw that at some point. And there's this, I can't remember in what country this occurs, but this is a thing that is done, I think, on an annual basis. And I can't remember why, but they're throwing themselves down a hill. It's and you're trying not to, it's like a race down a hill, I think. I'm just really pulling from memory here. But nonetheless, that's not the reason I pulled it up. I just thought I like the way that Thomas Lee worded it. It's an escalator ride up, which is, goes at a particular angle, and then a terrifying elevator ride down. Elevator broke. Not good, not safe. Okay. But that's all I got for you on this particular video. I am not a financial advisor. Do not buy or sell anything because of anything that I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea.